Yo everyone, welcome to a new video. The topic of today, why the early game is the most important part of any game. Brought to you by your local early game champion user. The average League of Legends game is comprised of 3 stages, early, mid, and late. As I've mentioned in previous videos, the early game is the foundation. Without it, no other part exists, or matters for the most part. I'm sure everyone watching has experienced a game where they stomp the opponents and force them to surrender in 15 minutes. But I'm also sure you've been on the receiving end of that as well. On which side of the spectrum you end up doesn't have a direct connection with your playstyle, but it does have an indirect one. Your gameplay is the combination between your playstyle plus mindset going into the game and updating it in real time. What that means is going in the game with the right mindset will dictate how the early game will go, and of course the whole game, as we already established. There's going to be games in which you go in, you're chilling in your lane or your jungle, but the score is 0 to 10 for the enemy team. Now the game can go in 2 ways. The first one is your team might just straight up crash out, and either it results into a fast FF or someone leaving, soft inting, straight up running it down, or whatever, you know what I mean. In which case, the best thing you can do is just accept it. There are games that no matter what you do, you will lose. And that's fine, that's just the harsh but most efficient truth that we just need to accept. Let's call these type of games unwinnable. The second subcategory of games is actually derived from another very important truth that we also need to realize. The actually unwinnable games are very few and far between. Most of the time when a game starts off badly, it goes in the second category, which is called a difficult to win game. What do you mean difficult? The game is literally 0-10 for the enemy team. It's cooked. I know where you're coming from, but no, the game is only truly over when you admit yourself that you cannot carry it. Is winning a 0-10 scoreline game winnable? Yes. Can it end up dragging for 40 minutes and still being a loss? Sadly, also yes. There is a saying that I assume everybody has heard before, which goes something along the lines of your actual character is revealed during difficult times. How you handle losing or in general difficult games in the long run is honestly the difference whether you climb or not. Now, you might be thinking, how does any of this relate to the early game? Well, you won't be able to carry anything unless your early stages are in a good spot. The best thing you can do for the longevity and consistency in your league journey is to ensure that your early game is solid. The word solid here does however have a very abstract meaning, since it all depends on the champion you're playing and the context of the game. So, let's say you're playing Aurora, and let's say you're playing top lane. In 90% of your matchups, you need to get a CS lead, a couple of solo kills, lane priority, and overall just have a decent impact in the early stages. And of course, later into the game, you need to think how to transition it into a winning position and guaranteeing victory. But that's a different topic. If you're interested in that specifically, I have videos on my channel that can be of help. Going back on topic though, the reason why you need to be impactful early is due to your champion's nature as a range champion and how oppressive her whole kit is when left in a vacuum on top lane against most champions. That said, in 10% of your matchups though, that's not the case. While you should still aim to punish enemy mistakes when they happen, say enemy Aurelia or Yasuo tries to dive you and obviously you can outplay them, of course you do your thing. But in general, in these matchups, your job is to potentially look for something the first couple of levels, but then later down the line when the laning phase goes more towards level 5, level 6, you just aim to survive and be as even as possible. Winning these matchups is close to impossible, and if you did win them, it's because you're just a better player than them. But champion-wise, you're unfavored to win them. On mid lane though, Aurora is a completely different champion. The nature of the whole lane is way more, let's call it peaceful. That's mainly due to the champions that are played in that role, but also the shorter lane. Not that you can't get solo kills of course, but on average you're playing more around the game state, not so much your lane state. In which case, Aurora is playing differently. She looks to be more impactful in different ways, securing lane priority and first move for instance, or looking to roam more around the map, also playing with the jungler, and overall being a good anchor for your team to fall back to. That's why, generally speaking, top and mid Aurora are the same early game champion, but due to outside factors you have different playstyles. But you always aim to quote-unquote win the early stages of the game. And this goes for most early game-centric champions. They aim to put the opponent as behind as possible, simultaneously getting a lead and use the fact that they're accelerated to secure the fastest possible victory. And now this is where you're probably thinking, okay that's cool and all, but what if I'm not playing an early game champion like you? Well, this is where you use absolutely the same information in your advantage. For some champions, winning is as simple as not going too behind in the laning phase. There are some very well known examples for this in League of Legends, but to give you a more in-practice example, not just in theory, here's a game from one of my recent commentary videos on my channel. The Purple Voidwalker, aka Kassadin, is a known counter to all AP champions, but mostly after he hits certain power spikes. Firstly, looking at it from my point of view, I have one mission in mind, and that's to put him as behind as possible during the laning phase, so when he does hit certain power spikes, I'm more ahead than he is, having a better chance to fight him back and overall more impact in the game. Or better yet, not even letting him get to those power spikes and ending the game as soon as possible. But now, looking at it from Kassadin's point of view, you know this, so your job is to not die immediately, CS as good as possible while maintaining good HP levels so you don't get dove or pushed out of lane too early, and overall not making any risky moves too early into the game. Going deeper during the laning phase, I was able to do a pretty good job on putting the Kassadin behind. At one point, I was almost even double his CS and forced his Rod of Ages and Seraphs to be completely delayed. But with all of that said, I wasn't actually able to solo kill him, which meant that only he is behind, I'm not that ahead. And this is where I want to bring in the abstract quality of what is the current game state. You need to base your decisions on what to do next primarily off of your own judgment and conscious knowledge about the current game you're in. Not what your teammates are pinging to do and not what's fun to currently do. If you want the most efficient way to improve and climb, that is. You are your own best mentor, so honestly get good at learning, but also get good at teaching. Going back to the game, the situation is not bad, but not ideal either. This again is kind of the nature of the lane, but also human error. I didn't play perfect, and even though it's not realistic to play perfect in general, you should always strive to play as perfect as possible. This is the best way to guarantee that you're always improving, but at the same time unveiling the things you can work on. Later on into the game, Kassadin was actually able to get a few kills from roams despite my best efforts during the laning phase. He was honestly in a very stable position. Yes, some of the things that unfolded like him not getting ganked or dove by my jungler even though he was in lethal range a decent amount of times, and also him getting lucky with getting kills and roams that I did ping did actually contribute a lot in him having the stable early game I just mentioned. But these are things I cannot control. I need to accept that there are things out of my grasp and all I can do is work on my trading, pinging and guiding situations to happen, wave manipulation, and mindset adaptation on the game at hand. Everyone can always improve, especially in the early game where your individual performance is enhanced. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would highly appreciate if you subscribe and drop a like. It helps me out a lot. Substitute Kassadin and Aurora for any champion from their respective character nature or honestly different ones. Each one of them has their own win and lose condition in the early stages and in the game. Are there any specific champion interaction and dynamics that are important? Yes, there's a lot of them that honestly you will just learn naturally as you're climbing through the ranks. There's just no way I can cover all of them here. Honestly, I don't want to go too off topic here since this is a video for the early game primarily. But just know that there are specific champion matchups that are extremely hard to win, and your win condition changes from your regular one to I really just need to survive and be useful later on. Most of these are certified dodge matchups in higher elo, but whether you choose to endure the bad early stages and not so pleasant later stages really comes down to your perspective and the other variables in the game. One last thing I want to touch on here before I leave you is that no matter what you know, everything needs to pass the test of execution. I talk about this all the time in my videos, but no matter what you know, what you've experienced, and what you're thinking, you need to be able to actually pull it off. Always hone your mechanics. There's a ton of games that are currently played that people have a favorable matchup and are supposed to win the early game, but they don't due to mechanical error. I'll never stop emphasizing on how important mechanics are. And that was the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed and maybe you noticed that it had more editing elements in this video. Am I finally getting better at this, or do I have a ghost editor? Who knows? I'm wishing everyone a good weekend or day if you happen to watch this in the future, and I'll see you in the next one.